So I want to start by going back in time to April. That's when you made the decision to file the lawsuit against the Department of Justice and Todd Blanche. It's the kind of action that a journalist rarely does.
That's
How
true.
did you make the decision to do that, and how difficult was it?
So it was not an easy decision. Part of it was grounded in just a natural human reaction to the intimidation and coercion campaign we've seen this administration do against people that are smarter than me, have more resources than I do, have big companies behind them. As an independent journalist, I'm on my own, right? I mean, I have a great partnership with the guys at Midas Touch, but I'm just Katie Fang News on YouTube. So
Right.
having left legacy mainstream media, which had like a phalanx of lawyers and people that were there, I was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah, again, just the human side of it was I was worried about doing it, but then came in, the element of necessity. I was reporting, I was analyzing, I was researching the tranche of documents that had been released by the Trump Department of Justice dealing with the Epstein files. And I was noticing that I was hitting walls, more accurately, I guess, black boxes on documents, and they were leaving out parts that were incredibly relevant to the information I wanted to obtain. A perfect example is my leaning into the international component of the sex trafficking ring that was being run by Epstein and his confederates. I was noticing that we didn't have, for example, foreign language documents. None at all. There was no indicator that they had been translated and then redacted and produced to the public. They just weren't there. Then I was also noticing, there was names blacked out that I knew realistically weren't victims, for example. I mean, there was stuff that was there that I wanted to learn more about. But we knew that the way that the law had been drafted, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, that there was no independent cause of action, private right to a cause of action that was written into the law, which was a defect to the law, but it just is what it is. And so my brilliant legal team at Public Integrity Project, led by Brendan Ballou, former DOJ prosecutor himself, figured, you know what, look, it's an administrative final action that was taken by the Department of Justice in January of this year when they announced that they were done providing these documents pursuant to the law. And we didn't agree with that final agency action taken by the Department of Justice. And that gave rise to us being able to sue. We were pleasantly surprised to draw Emmett Sullivan, a senior judge on the DC bench, and even more pleasantly surprised when he granted our preliminary injunction motion, which helped us not only get through the door with the lawsuit, but also to stay in the house, I guess, right? And so that's kind of where we find ourselves now. But at the inception of this, it most certainly was not something that I woke up and said, this is what we're going to do. I mean, it was a process, right, to be able to get there.
So when I ask about it being, how difficult was it? I mean, you surely knew that it was going to grab a lot of fire, a lot of attention. I assume you did. So did that look like, a good thing, an opportunity, or did it look like, this could end up, spinning out of control in a way that you wouldn't necessarily know how it would play?
It's such a good question. So as a lawyer, I am trained to hedge against all possibilities, right? And that's also what I'm supposed to do, managing client expectations, letting them know that there's a possibility that this could happen. And here's the different permutation of what could occur. Right. So I kind of had to counsel myself on things that can happen. I can tell you, I knew that it would draw attention only because it was and remains the only lawsuit that's ever been brought pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act. But I never did it for purposes of attention. I mean, I did it out of utility for my job, but number one. But number two, I think it's garnered more attention because it has been successful, right? I mean, we have been able to dislodge from this monolith of the DOJ a decent amount of progress in terms of trying to get something done. Because if you'll recall, when the law was passed and signed into law, it was in November of 2025. And even though we had millions of pages released by the DOJ, there was nothing being done about the redactions, which many of us knew were illegal, or the withholdings. And so I think that's the reason why it's gained so much attention, is that the lawsuit has been successful every step of the way. And that is the reason why I think people have been paying so much attention to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that along with, I think, a few other things which I want to get to. I mean, but including the fact that we know that there are millions of files that have not been released. So
True.
the Transparency Act, I think we all have a pretty strong sense of the lack of transparency,
Exactly.
which is why, you sort of grabbing this and trying to push things forward, means a lot, not only in terms of the getting of the facts, but like, not just willing to stand by and let things not happen. So the second question, how would you so far, beyond what you've said, sort of describe the impact of the lawsuit? And I'm thinking about, the judges considered now contempt charges for the lack of action by the DOJ. And the second part of it, how would you describe the impact of this kind of activist, if we can call it this, activist journalism on your work?
Yeah. I've never heard it phrased that way. The last part of it, of being an activist journalist. Look, I'm not, it's no secret that I, have a very healthy contempt for this administration, but it's grounded, I think, fairly and objectively in reasons that are not partisan, right? I mean,
Right.
Any journalist, regardless of whether you are a Republican or Democrat or even an independent, you want to have facts and evidence and truth. And
by the way, good activism, I think, can be grounded in facts, and a desire for like honest truth, right?
Well, and that's exactly where I come from, right? I mean, for me, it's not about only going for, quote, Republicans that may be in the Epstein files. That's not the case. It's whomever was a perpetrator, enabler, co-conspirator, facilitator, those are the people that should be released, because that's what the law said. And that's what I always go back to, because it is truly not activism, actually, to just have the law be abided by, because we do ascribe to no man is above the law, no man, no woman is above the law, right? And if that's the case, then that includes the DOJ especially, and that includes the Attorney General of the United States. And so I think that it's not so much activist journalism, it's just making sure that we all do what we say we write about, or what we talk about, right? We actually walk that walk. I think that we shouldn't hold other people to that standard that we report about or that we write about. I think we ourselves should also be doing the same thing. And that includes making sure that powers that be are also held accountable for doing that as well, abiding by the laws that are there. I've always said, I only want that. I haven't asked for anything more than what the law provides for. I haven't asked for them to do more than what they're supposed to do. I just want them to do what the law requires them to do.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to linger on this notion of activist journalism. I guess I offered it up, and we can kind of figure out what the contours of that. But I think the important piece of it is that, you made a decision. You weren't going to just, ask the questions, wait for the answers. If the answers don't come, maybe you talk to somebody else. The usual ways that a journalist operates. You said, what other tools do I have to try to motivate things to move forward?
Well, that's where my lawyer background comes in. The tools available were I could sue. Right. And so I guess I'm this weird hybrid of trial lawyer and journalist. And because of that, I was like, oh, yeah, that is definitely a tool. That's an arrow in my quiver, is the ability to sue. And that's what we have done. And I do think the other important part about this is part of being a journalist, though, is also sharing, I think, what is happening along the way. I think that is also a way of bringing people in from the public into the experience of that. That's our storytelling that we do as journalists as well. And that's also been part of why I think it's been so important that I share this journey with people. They've been along the ride with me as well. But I feel like we're all in this together, literally, because I'm sharing every step of the litigation process with them.
Yeah, and look, you are at least arguing for like why maybe more and more journalists ought to have, especially in these years, a law degree.
Oh my Lord, right? We're all going back to law school together, though, my friend. We're all in law school together.
That's true. So the third question, I want to stick with the Epstein files. I mean, look, it remains sickening that this cover-up continues, and the Epstein class, let's call them that, has evaded justice. Most Americans oppose this failure of justice. My question for you is this for you more a question of justice or morality, right? When you think about, the actions of the class, and do you believe that the rich and powerful will ever be held accountable for the destruction they've caused in the lives of so many children and young women?
So the answer is multi-pronged. I think accountability will be achieved when we have people in positions of power to be able to help achieve that accountability. But accountability can also include a component of justice. For somebody like me, as a former prosecutor who is a lawyer, I'm driven more by the justice and the morality part of it. I mean, I have said openly, if child rape is not a line in the sand for you, I can't help you, right? I mean, there's a reason why I have total, derision for Republicans that are not openly calling out the demand for Todd Blanche right now to just release the unredacted files with just the protection of the victims. The fact that he refuses to do so, the fact that I'm even having to sue and fight in a court of law for this is mind-boggling. I should be joined by every member of Congress, regardless of party affiliation, in saying shame on Todd Blanche for continuing to protect the Epstein elite or the Epstein class, right? And justice for me is so important about this because I was never taught or raised to believe that there should be a double standard when it comes to justice.
Yeah.
There was never a time in law school where I took a class and then said, okay, Katie, now it's time for the shadow class where we teach you the other part of the judicial system that operates differently for people with money, means, and influence. Like, that was never taught to me because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, the fundamental reality is, and the brutal harshness of what this is there is a double standard. And so for me, if there is a way to expose that corruption of the double standard, and that happens to be an incredibly powerful byproduct of this lawsuit and the work that I do as a journalist, then great. Then I embrace it. It's one way for me to be able to help not only myself in the pursuit of my reporting and my analysis on this, but I'm also helping not only Epstein survivors, but also survivors of abuse that had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. There have been several of them that have said to me how grateful they are that somebody cares enough to do this lawsuit. That means a lot to me. It was not the point of it, but it's certainly a great feeling to know that I am helping people that I've never even met because I cared enough to want to do this.
Yeah, well, and that's where I'm asking the moral question. I mean, obviously, it's a justice question. It's not discreetly one or the other. There obviously these things are intertwined, but it strikes me that this has a particular resonance, a particular power for people, exactly because the crimes we're talking about are so heinous.
Yeah. I mean, how do you not have a shock the conscience moment every day when you think about this, right? And part of it's not just the horrific nature of the crimes themselves that were perpetrated on children. It's the horror of the cover-up as well. It's the horror of the failures of the institutions and the systems going even before the 2000s. I'm talking even before the sweetheart plea deal that Jeffrey Epstein got in the mid 2000s. There is so much that has happened that we cannot allow ourselves to become kind of numb to it. I think that we turn an eye because it is so horrific, but I also think this is a very harsh reminder to us that the more that we coddle this class of people and the more that we allow this to happen and we excuse it, this is the monster you create. It is a true Frankenstein that has been created, or excuse me, I guess that was Dr. Frankenstein, but his monster that was created, that's kind of what has been created here. It's been years upon years of people turning away because they saw a person with money and they saw a person with influence surrounded by people with money and influence. And they thought either couldn't be possible or we hear the rumors, but we're going to excuse it. And then you end up with this really just disgusting result. And I think that that's what we need to realize so we don't keep on repeating this. I have heard from so many survivors, we need to be learning how to make this better for our children. I have an 11-year-old daughter. I want a world that's safer, that doesn't have child predators like this, right? I mean, how could you not want that for all children?
Yeah, and look, you have a large, I mean, almost a unanimous vote from the Congress to pass this Transparency Act. And then, amongst those same people, I'm now talking about the senators, they confirmed Todd Blanche as the U.S. Attorney General, as if they had forgotten what they had said before. So I want to linger on Blanche for a minute and the Justice Department. It is the fourth question. Despite his role in the cover-up, vindictive prosecutions, other violations of the rule of law, his role as Trump's protector, he's confirmed, and it as much as anything, it raises questions about the Justice Department and the future of the Justice Department. Not only for the next 2 years, but the prospects of reestablishing its independence and credibility in the coming years.